Well, hello, we're here in Tempe, Arizona at the Pyle Center with Mark Randall, and I'm Mckell Keeney, and today is July 29th, 2021, and we are here to talk about memories of Mark's family and Tempe and whatever else comes to mind as something that we should capture for history. And so, first of all, Mark, where were you born? Were you the first one in Tempe, or who was the first person in your family who came to Tempe?
I was the first one in our family that was born, but I was born in Phoenix.
Okay.
But our family lived in Tempe at the time. They just went to Phoenix to the Good Samaritan Hospital.
All right. And so they lived in Tempe, but you were born in Phoenix, and they brought you back home to Tempe. And
Exactly.
have you been here ever since then?
Exactly.
All right.
Well, stints out 1 year at college and a couple of times on missions for my church.
All
For our
right.
church.
Where were your parents born, and where were your grandparents born?
My grandparents were all born in Utah. My mother was born, but they came to Arizona when they were young.
All right.
Um, my mother was born in Mesa, and my father was born in Pine,
All right.
northern Arizona.
What is a favorite memory that you have of your family as you were growing up?
Working together, we had a big yard, a huge pecan tree, and the pecan tree took a lot of work because it sapped on the patio and sidewalks, and we had to keep that hosed off and keep our and leaves to rake, and then we had nuts to harvest.
So that was fun for you to get out and work in the yard with your family?
A fun memory. And then, of course, we had almost a half acre of land, and it all needed to be mowed and taken care of. So working together was fun.
Tell us where that was. What were the cross streets?
I grew up in a home at 517 East 8th Street. And back in those days, right now it's called University Drive. But it was on the corner of McAllister and 8th Street. And this is a picture of our old home. It was called the Goodwin Home. This is after my parents had remodeled it some.
So about what year do you think that photo is from?
This picture is probably taken in about 1960, 55, 60.
Okay.
And the Tempe City Images of America, our home is in that same book right here.
Oh,
Called
yeah.
The
You
Goodwin
can tell
Home.
it's the same roof line. Okay.
Yeah. But the home, when they purchased it, just had a porch across the front. At one time, it had a porch all the way around the home.
Uh-huh.
And on the back, it also had a porch like this, and it was just kind of a screened-in porch, and that was my room. So I lived in a room without air conditioning or heat, but I survived.
For people who have that book and want to look at the photo, will you tell them what page?
It's on page 38 of this book.
Maybe show the
And
front.
it's
It's
called
38 of Images of Tempe. Is that what it's called?
Images of America, Tempe.
Can you close it and show us the cover again? This book is available at the Tempe History Museum in the gift shop for sale. I actually have one at my house. I haven't read it all yet, but some great
I think the
photos
home
in
was
that book.
built in the 1890s. And in this picture, the brick is still, I think, red, but our parents painted the brick white. And and then they put this different porch on and did some remodeling and fixing up of the home.
And then what happened to the home? I'm assuming it's not still there.
When I was a junior in high school, ASU purchased the land from the whole neighborhood, and the home was bulldozed down, and it's now kind of a parking lot. And McAllister doesn't even come through anymore where it used to. They've changed McAllister over a block.
Did the
Or used
neighborhood
to.
have a name? What did you call the neighborhood? Do you
No,
remember?
it did not
No?
have a name that I
Okay.
know of. Our home was right on 8th Street, and across from 8th Street from our home there were a series of stores and gas stations across the street. And then behind that was a canal. And then on the other side of the canal was what we call Mexican Town. And so
a barrio, maybe?
a barrio,
Uh-huh.
exactly.
Okay.
And wonderful people lived there. And I grew up with my best friends being Obregons and Peraltas and Perez's and Rodriguez's. They all lived in that same
That's
neighborhood.
fantastic. You all played together and
Yeah.
grew up together.
I started school. I was such an obnoxious brat that my mother sent me to the child development laboratory when I was 3. I'm sure to get me out of the house and keep me from teasing my younger sisters. And so I started school there, and then we all of the children in our family went to Payne Training School. It was named after Ira D. Payne, who was educator, and it was right on the ASU campus, and it had a kindergarten through 8th grade, and it was a very liberal art school. I learned how to square dance, I learned swimming, I learned we went to many different concerts and art shows and dance recitals, but I didn't math or spelling or any of the things that would have been more important. But it was basically a very good school. Our dog was notorious at that school, and we walked to school. It was from our house to where Payne Training School was about 2.5 blocks. A wonderful policeman we called Billy the policeman helped us across the street at college at one of the crosswalks there. And our dog followed us to school every day. And a lot of the classrooms were regular classrooms, but the shop and the music room and the cafeteria, it seems like, were old army barracks. And so they were raised up on blocks about this high. And our dog used to just go under there and wait out the day and come back to school with us. He was kind of notorious though, because he would steal lunches from kids, and he would howl during music when we would go to music. And Mr. Seawright did not like that.
He was just trying to sing along.
And he would chase balls when we would play PE.
What kind of dog was he?
He
So
was
we
a
can picture
black
it.
Cocker Spaniel.
Okay.
And this is a picture of our notorious dog Tag.
That's great. Thanks for bringing these photos so we can picture what you're talking about. That's
When
awesome.
I was in 4th grade, at the end of 4th grade, the principal sent with our final report cards a diploma from the school for our dog. And on the diploma it says Tag Randall, and it says has graduated from ID Payne Training School and is hereby promoted to not attend school anymore. Because of the ratio of human years and canine years, we feel that Tag has really earned a PhD. So please do not bring him to school anymore. He has graduated. And this is signed by our principal and my teacher.
Okay.
And it says his attendance was very irregular. So my mother had to tie up the dog when we left for school after that, because they did not want that dog at school anymore.
Now you said there was a canal behind your house. Were you allowed to swim in the canal back then?
Yes, we did swim in the canal, and I do remember a few times where we tied a rope on the back of a trailer hitch on a car where there was a road next to the canal, and we did water skiing in the canal.
Okay. All right.
But I did go to Tempe Beach quite a bit also to swim.
Oh, that was during the years when, okay, yeah, they had the swimming pool there.
They had a swimming pool,
Okay.
and it was probably the only swimming pool in town. My mother was very incensed that it was segregated and they did not allow Mexicans to swim there. And my mother felt very bad about that. And when they went to the city council to try to change that, they said, well, they will probably just do a bunch of damage to the pool or to the dressing rooms or whatever. And it was fought by several people in Tempe, including my mom, but it was segregated to the point where they drained the pool on Monday night and drained the water down on the Tempe Beach Park below the swimming pool. So Monday was the only day that they allowed Mexicans to swim there, which she thought was very, very bad. Harkins was one of the ones that was on the city council that spearheaded desegregating.
Was that Red Harkins?
I think his name was Ron.
Ron
Harkins.
Ron Harkins, okay.
It was his father, and I don't know what his name was, but he was very good in fighting the problems
Segregation.
that Tempe had with. And there was a time even before we moved here where there was a school for Mexican children. And we had a neighbor that taught there, and then there was a school for white kids. Not good.
So as long as you've lived here then, have you noticed that attitudes about cultural diversity have changed? Have you seen that happen? And
I sure hope so. I think
so?
it has.
Yeah.
I think it has. I hope everyone is accepted.
All right, so as you grew up and went off to school and off on your church missions and traveled, I don't know if it was just in the country or around the world, how did that travel change how you saw Tempe as a community? Did it broaden anything about your thinking or comparing different places and getting to see other places?
It's always wonderful to think of the desert as my home. And I served a mission in the Andes mission, which included Peru, Bolivia, northern Chile, Ecuador, and Colombia. And then my wife and I have served a mission in Missouri and one in Hawaii. So we've had some diverse places to serve.
But then you came back to Tempe.
I always came back to Tempe.
Right.
And I was telling Bill back there that I have actually lived in 10 different homes in the same square mile.
Really? That's got to be some kind of record, you think?
Well, four of them I designed.
Okay.
Designed and built.
So you really like this spot of the world. That square mile is very dear to your heart.
And it was hard because that area is now in the McClintock district, and I, of course, was a Tempe Buffalo.
Oh, Buffalo.
So all of our children and many of our grandchildren graduated from McClintock High School.
They became Chargers, and you had a divided household for
exactly.
when those two teams played each other, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And I did attend ASU. I went one year away to school to BYU. When I came home, my father was very ill. My mother had been very ill. And so I stayed at ASU. I got 2 jobs there, working in the mailroom, mailing out mailing out the catalogs, exactly. And then I also had a job at ASU where we moved furniture and prepared classrooms for different classes. So it was a wonderful place to work and a great place to go to school. When I was a senior in high school, I got a job at the city of Tempe during the summer. And I worked for the city of Tempe 7 summers.
Wow.
And it was wonderful work. I replaced the people that would go on vacation in the water services department. And so when a meter reader would go on vacation, I would read meters that 2 weeks.
So you were kind of a floater. You would move around as needed.
Exactly. I did turn-offs and turn-ons, and sadly I had to do delinquent bills and turn off people's water when they didn't pay, but mostly it was meter reading that I did during the summer.
Okay.
But I started in the very old municipal building on 5th Street
Okay.
before they tore it down. Then when they tore it down, the city moved its offices to Mill and Southern temporarily, and then was still there working when the city went back to the Pyramid
Upside
building.
down pyramid, yes. Our unique city hall.
The new city hall.
Okay. Back to your family, thinking of your parents or your grandparents or aunts and uncles, was there somebody who was influential on you? I mean, I'm sure a lot of them were, but who stands out as somebody who you looked up to or learned a lot from as you were growing up?
Lots of people. I think the one teacher that was very influential was Bruce Harper. He was a high school teacher.
Okay.
And he was taught American history,
Oh,
and I have loved history, and that was my major in college.
Okay.
And I think that his influence and his love for our country and his goodness and teaching ability really stuck out for me, and he was a great example in helping me choose a major.
Okay, that's wonderful. Great teachers. They stay with us, don't they?
Yeah. And many family members also. I have many great uncles and aunts, and of course, my parents.
Did your parents live out their lives here in Tempe? Did they stay in town?
Yes, my father passed away when he was 54,
Oh, all right.
so he left this life early.
Yeah.
My mother lived to be 93,
Okay.
but she outlived 3 husbands,
Okay.
and she had 3 really outstanding, wonderful husbands.
But she always stayed in Tempe, or
No,
she
she
moved
did
away?
not. No, she lived about 12 years in Utah.
Okay.
But then after he passed away, she moved back to Tempe and just lived a couple of blocks from us.
Were your parents buried here in Tempe?
They
or-
were both buried in Mesa City Cemetery.
All right, that's a nice cemetery. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I just wondered, we've got some older cemeteries up by the A Mountain for Double Butte and
Exactly.
Twin Butte.
Exactly.
Um,
I think one of the stories that most people that are young in Tempe remember, Mrs. Burchett, the bird lady. I don't know whether you've heard about her, but anytime anyone found a bird that had fallen from a nest or was injured, she was the lady that lived on 7th Street and College, maybe the next street over from College. But people took birds to her, and she had huge, big cages in her backyard where she nurtured birds back to health.
So people knew where to take the birds that needed help straight to her, and
Exactly.
she would
Exactly.
do the rehabilitation. Okay.
Exactly.
Was there somebody in your family, an ancestor that maybe you didn't get to meet in this life that you'd like to know more about, or do you feel like you've done a lot of family history research already and learned about those people?
Going back in my family, there is one man that I would really like to meet, and his name was Alfred Randall. And he was a builder. He built a mill in Ogden, Utah, and he went on a mission to Hawaii, like my wife and I were able to do.
So how many generations back? That's your
He
direct
was,
male
he was
line,
my
I'm
great,
assuming.
great, great grandfather.
Okay.
But he was such a jovial and happy man that one time the authorities came to arrest him, and he had a farm in Ogden, and they came to actually arrest him and fine him, and he picked a little box of peaches and gave to him, and just was so jovial and told a few jokes and seemed so nice that the man later said, I did not have it within me
Yeah, to punish him.
to
for
arrest
that.
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
if you could ask him a question, what question would you ask him?
Well, he had a falling out with a partner, and it never was resolved. And I just wanted to ask him how that came down, and what actually happened to that, because it never was mediated. It never went to court. It never, and he lost a mill that he had built.
Mm.
And
So it was a big
I
deal.
would probably ask him that, and well, we'll have lots of questions, I guess.
All right, and let me introduce the other voice you hear on this is Dwayne Rowan. Do you want to say anything else?
Hi, I'm Dwayne Rowan. I'm a resident of Tempe since 1995.
Great. All right, and so were there things that you would do downtown, like parades or scout activities or anything like that in the community? Sports teams, or what type of things did you do out in the community?
There were always Veterans Day parades, and as a Cub Scout and a Boy Scout, we marched in those.
Mm-hmm.
There were, I remember being, and I can't remember whether it was what charity we were working for, but we had they had little poppy flowers that they had made, and we sold those door to door, and that was something that I excelled in selling. I was very entrepreneurial, I should say, when I was young, and out in the community, I made pot holders and sold them door to door. I think I sold them 2 for a quarter, something like that.
Okay.
And I had a parakeet, a stand where you could stand up in a cage. I raised parakeets. Our house was right across the street from the new ASU stadium, and I cleaned off a parking or a empty lot close to our house. And then at our house, I parked our cars out on the street early. And so I parked cars for $1 a car for the football games.
You were always thinking about how to make a buck, weren't you?
Exactly. I washed neighbors' cars. I had a lawn mowing business, and I had about 4 lawns I mowed. And I had a Tempe daily newspaper route for quite a few years.
On a bicycle?
On a bicycle.
Okay.
And it was a very long route. We picked up our papers at Rural Road and Apache, and I rode down to Lemon Street, clear down to where the Marlet's garage is, and it's still standing there on Old 8th Street, and then clear out to the Creamery, up Old 8th Street in all the lanes along there, and then back to our home and up McAllister to Apache, over to Venice, back, and then over back to our house. So it was probably a 4 to 5 mile paper route.
Wow, that's every day. It
was well. Tempe News did not deliver on Sunday.
All right, so 6 days a week.
6 days a week.
And then you got a day of rest.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Exactly. And I'm trying to think of. I was on a swim team at Tempe Beach, the Tempe Beach. I've always loved swimming. I ran the 880 race and the mile, not both in the same meet, but one race or the other, when I was in high school. I was not a real good athlete.
Out of all those memories you have of Tempe, is there one that kind of stands out as kind of maybe changing the course of your life or having a big influence on what happened to you later on in life, how you viewed the world? If not, that's okay. I could have given you a heads up on some of these questions.
That's kind of a
So
hard question. I would need to think
about it ahead of
that
time.
probably.
We can come back to that. That's totally fine. Let me ask you this. What is valuable to you? What do you value most, and why?
Family, faith, freedom are all
Okay.
wonderful values. We have 5 children and 20 grandchildren, and now expecting our 3rd great-grandchild. So we have a wonderful family. And
Did some of them stay in this area?
yes, we have a daughter that still lives in Tempe.
Uh-huh.
She and her husband just bought a home sort of in a commune on 13th Street where there's an underground home and a total electric home. And their home is built out of bales of straw.
Okay.
So all their walls are this thick. Of course, they're plastered on the outside, but they have that home there and live right in Tempe. My daughter lives in Higley, and son used to live in Tempe until about 4 years ago, and he moved to Flagstaff.
4 months ago.
Pardon?
4 months ago.
Is it that soon ago? 4 months ago. I thought it was 2 years. Seems like a long time. Then we have a son in Idaho and one in Washington.
Now, how do you want your loved ones to remember you? Not anytime soon, but sometime down the road.
Hopefully kinder and gentler than I have been at that.
You've mellowed out? Have you mellowed out some?
Exactly.
From when they were growing up? Yeah.
Exactly.
It's funny how that happens with the grandkids. We're a little bit easier on them, right?
Yeah.
What kind of work did you do growing up?
I started as a teacher.
Oh, that's right.
Yes,
Okay.
I taught in South Phoenix
That's
at
right.
Wilson Junior High School. I did my student teaching at Camelback High School, but then I got a job as a teacher's aide in that district, and they liked my work there, and so I got a job there. And I was not a good teacher and did not enjoy it, and so I changed and I became an insurance agent.
All right. So
I
that
had a
was
farmer's
what
insurance
you
agency
did that for your work.
for 29 years.
Okay.
So,
What else comes to mind that you would like to share about life in Tempe and?
well, life in Tempe was a lot simpler, and it was a lot safer. It was a lot smaller. I think when my parents moved here, it was 2,500 people, and that was when I was born, and it definitely grew and has grown immensely. But we could, ride our bikes or walk down the railroad tracks to friends' house or to the Tempe beach, or going to the movies was always a big thing on Saturday. Everyone in our family anyway, we would scurry around and get our work done so that we could get that quarter that we needed to get in the movie and have a treat for a quarter. And they had a Saturday serial that was sort of ongoing each week, so you did not want to miss what was going on at the serial or the movie. It's called the Tempe Theater, I think.
Yeah.
But it was a going place to go to. There was also a place called we called it the UDI. It was the University Drive-In, and it was right on the corner of Apache and Rural Road. And that was the place when you were in high school or driving, whatever. That was the place to go, and you'd park. It was one of the kind of drive-ins where you would park, and the waitresses, and I don't know whether they were on roller skates or not. Can you remember? I don't think the waitresses were on, but they had a speaker, and you could do your order through the speaker, and then they would come out with your order and take your money. But that was a place where you met up with friends, or it was kind of a place to hang out.
Well, your childhood sounds wonderful. It sounds like Old Town America, but in the hot Arizona desert, right? Had to make some adjustments probably for the heat, like sleeping on the porch.
And then later they had a drive-in movie called the Pioneer Theater, right on Apache Boulevard, and it was closer to Mesa, but it was $1 a car, and I had at times.
Did that seem pricey to you?
Pardon?
Did that seem like a lot of money?
No, because
okay, it didn't.
No, because for
Was it a good deal?
for me, during the off roundup season, my father had a cattle ranch, and so if it was off season, which was Roundup was more in May and in October, but most of the other months I had a pickup truck to drive. It was an old truck. And I could get easy 10 friends to go, and they'd each pay a dime, and I'd say for gas, in lieu of gas, you bring a treat, some popcorn or candy or whatever you had at the house, and we would park the truck, and we had folding chairs and put them on both sides of the truck and go to the drive-in movie theater for it, and I'd get in free because I furnished the truck. They all had to pay a dime. But that was older, when I was in high school more.
Other than your high school teacher you told us about, that was dear to you, do you have, are there names that come to mind of old time Tempeans who maybe you wish you could talk to now that they might not be around anymore, that you wish you would ask them more questions, or who would those people be? Did you, like neighbors that you knew? And
Yeah.
I know I live in South Tempe. I've lived there since 1990, and I hear from some of the old timers down there that it used to be just sheep farms. There used to be hardly anything down on Warner Road, right?
Yeah. There was a family here that lived on University Drive, also only further east. Their name was Arredondo, Josie, and I can't think of the father's name, but he worked for the Burchett family, who had a farm there.
Okay.
And one day he just came into their home and said, "I don't feel good." They laid him down on the couch, and he died right there in their living room.
That's
And
sad.
but his dear wife worked. Her name was Josie, and she worked very, very hard. And I think she had 5 sons, one of whom was the student body president at Tempe High School.
Okay.
But all of her sons got educations and became teachers. There's Alex and
Is this the same family that Robin Arredondo Savage, who's on the city council now,
exactly.
comes from? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. She must be a daughter, maybe, of Joe.
I think that's her uncle, actually.
Maybe it's her uncle, yeah. But a wonderful family, and I would like to interview, especially Josie. When she was older, when I got to know her, she had dementia, and so it was really hard to. But my mother worked with her in our church. There's a Women's Relief Society organization, and she was president, and my mother was president, and they worked
they
together.
knew each other well.
They worked together, and Josie later served a mission in Florida.
Okay.
But both the Arredondos would be people that have deep, long time Tempe roots that I would like to get to know better.
Yeah. Okay, Robin's on our list to talk to, so we'll see who else is alive in her family still that's of the older generation.
I know Joe is, because I
Okay.
saw him not too long ago.
Did you? Okay.
He would be one that you should call to interview.
All right. Sounds good. Well, don't go away. We have more questions for you.
Oh,
Do you have anything come to mind? You want to come up and
I think you
pick
can
his
probably
brain?
hear me from here.
Yeah?
Yes,
Right. Yes. I think that, considering that this is the history of Tempe, there are several things. Okay, the last thing you talked about was Josie Arredondo. Josie ran the snack bar at the Tempe Beach. That's where she was working in the 1950s. The television series Happy Days, this is basically how we lived our lives. And I'm Bill Lothridge, and we were actually neighbors as kids growing up. He lived at 8th Street on McAllister. I lived at Orange Street on McAllister. We didn't know each other in those years. We may have. You were just a big older. I was the big bully. I was older than you. So, but I'd like to, if it's okay with you guys, let's talk about Mill Avenue and Payne Training School. We need to. I think we need to flesh these things out. You glossed about Payne Training School, but Payne Training School was on the Arizona State College campus. It wasn't Arizona State University.
Yes, it was.
When did Arizona State become a university?
I think it was 1959.
Okay, so all the time you refer to ASU and being there, working there and doing things, a lot of that time it was Arizona State College.
Exactly.
Okay, where did you get your haircut?
Ray Bowles, ASU, it later was called ASU Barber Shop, but I think it was called Ray Bowles Barber.
Right. And where was he?
He was on Mill Avenue.
Which shop do you remember going to first?
The very first shop was between the Boston store and Miller's Indian store, right in that block, I think.
Okay. And that's why we want to talk about Mill Avenue. Where did you buy your clothes?
The Boston store. Yeah.
And what were the clothes that they sold in there primarily? Levi's,
Exactly.
t-shirts, white t-shirts, and blue Levi's.
Exactly.
I don't know that I could have ever bought anything else in that store. You?
Oh, they had sports
Khakis?
shirts.
Yeah, okay. Button-up shirts.
Yeah.
Yes. But they were the place to go to buy clothing.
Exactly.
Is that right? And that was the Boston store, is that correct?
Well, yes, and then later, Joe Sella's store used to sell clothes,
But what did Joe Sella sell?
but mainly sports equipment and
Sporting
sports
equipment
shirts.
stuff.
Yeah.
That's correct. So Mill Avenue was the downtown of Tempe where everything was. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you were a kid and your parents took you to go buy clothing, it would be to the Boston store.
Exactly.
Then as you came, you remember the APS building? The Arizona Public Service building?
Yes, that was further
That's Fifth Street.
south.
Fifth Street, yeah, Fifth Street and Mill Avenue.
Yes,
Across the street was the Laird Drug Store.
exactly.
And what was next to the Laird Drug Store?
The theater.
That's right. And what was next going south was Upton's. Let me help you if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Upton's, the diner, where the counter where you bought ice cream and got a Coke. Or maybe you didn't go in there. You
I
never had an extra 25 cents.
I was too frugal to ever buy food away from home.
But what was next in was a Woolworth's, was a 5 and dime store. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then there was a store, as I remember, on the other side of the street that sold bicycles, because I bought a bicycle
Earnhardt?
there. Earnhardt's, yes.
Western Auto.
Yes, exactly. I bought a bicycle there once.
And the Richfield service station?
Yes. And the post office was downtown there
Post office
too.
was on the southwest corner, 5th Street and Mill.
Yeah.
Now, I'm trying to get you down to the Richfield station. Nevitt's Richfield? You remember
Yes.
Nevitt's Richfield?
Well, that was on Apache, wasn't
No,
it?
it moved. That was Brody.
Oh,
But
okay.
Nevitt was downtown on 5th Street, or on 6th Street,
Okay.
maybe 7th Street. There was a little corner restaurant right there on the corner of Nevitt's Richfield. Do you remember that little restaurant?
Was it Mexican food?
No, it was a Greasy Spoon grill, hamburgers.
Oh, is that where Fulton's mother worked?
That was Fulton's restaurant.
Yeah.
Ira Fulton,
Yeah.
who you all have certainly heard of. So, Mill Avenue was very important in our lives as we came. There was a doctor's office down there. Did you ever go to that doctor? Irvin?
No.
Irvin, okay. And when you went, what doctor did you go to?
Axel and Westerfeld.
And they were located?
They were located right on the corner of College and 8th Street.
Right across the street from the Catholic Church,
Exactly.
right? And on the south side of the street was Arizona State.
Exactly.
In that area right across south on the Arizona State campus, there was a big bowl type circular drive, and we used to have drive-in, or they would have outdoor movies in there during the summer. Do you remember those?
I don't remember those. We spent our summers a lot at the Tono Natural Bridge.
That's right.
So we were gone during a lot of the summer.
And because you had, what was at the Toronto National Bridge, who owned that?
Our family were part owners of that.
You know, when people, I don't mean to interject here, but like this, but this family is a very big family, and they own the Toronto Natural Bridge, and you could fish up there, and you go up there and spend your summers. And the things he's just talking about in passing, you almost need a conversation between a couple of us to do this, really.
Come and sit up here, Bill.
Okay, we're good. Well, I'm not, Taylor, you don't have enough room. The Payne, they can hear me. The Payne Training School. Now, the Payne Training School was a laboratory school for the Arizona State College. You said that you learned how to art and other, what was the things that you said, that it was a liberal arts type of?
Square dancing,
Square dancing.
painting.
Yeah. My parents taught the square dancing.
Oh.
My parents taught the square dancing.
Oh, okay.
You know, they were the Tempe Tenderfoots. But what we didn't learn in that school was how to study. We learned math, we learned English, we had to diagram sentences, but when we got to high school, there was no study habits. Because if you wanted to do something, you went and did it. Go to the library and read, and you had very little structure there, if I remember.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, it was, I didn't even hear the word homework
No.
until I was in high school.
So who was your
And
teacher?
then only people did it that wanted extra credit. And I didn't
You didn't need it.
I didn't want extra
This is
credit.
why you had such a fun childhood.
So
There
who
no
was your
homework.
kindergarten teacher?
Um,
Mrs. Cassidy, maybe?
Mrs. Cassidy, and then I had Mrs. James
For first grade,
for first grade,
second grade?
Mr. Lewis,
So you, and then third grade,
Mrs. Couch, I think.
was it Crouch or Chase?
I don't remember
Okay.
I can go back through my pictures
And
and
you can see,
pick out my
yeah.
teachers, but I can't, my memory's not as good as yours, Bill.
We were, then we had in fourth grade, and each of the grades had its own class, right? There was only one grade for each
Yes.
class. The shop was over there, was Mr. Weir still the shop teacher when you were there?
No, it was Mr. Weir taught me 8th grade.
Oh, did he?
No.
Okay. So he wasn't the shop teacher anymore.
No,
But our playground was there. That's
yes,
where you had a playground in front of the school. It was a quadrangle school just to the south of Old Main. Is the school, the Main Training School. It had a fish tank out in the middle of it.
no, but it burned down when I
It
was
burned in
there.
1956.
Yeah, while I was there, I remember it being burned down. It burned down, I should say.
Yeah.
I don't want to incriminate myself.
No, right. But we were right on the campus, and we had to walk by the cafeteria for the Arizona State College as we went to our playground where this building was, this barrack-style building.
You know, the
And then that's-
playground was closer to right where Grady Gamage Auditorium is
The
now.
playground? Yeah, that's when you went to 10th Street.
Yeah, that's
Main
true.
Training School, you moved over to 10th Street.
Yeah.
School.
I actually went to 3 schools. There was the old school that burned,
Right,
then they kind of did a makeshift school in the old cafeteria, and then we took the 10th Street School after that. But each of the classrooms had huge mirrors, one-way mirrors on both ends of the classroom. And there was a room big enough on one side for a whole classroom of college students to observe. And on the other end was just a small little area with maybe one row of chairs for observation. But college students that were getting their degree in education would come in and teach a concept or a unit or whatever, and then they would be critiqued by their fellow class members who were watching them as well as the teacher. And so we were kind of guinea pigs, we thought, I guess. But we never knew whether there was a class there, whether there were people observing in the other classes.
So in the old school, before it burned, there was a, kind of a cafeteria thing on the ASU campus, the Memorial Union,
Yes,
right? Where was that? Okay.
I think it was just
It was-
west of the school.
It was to the south of the school. I'm sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot. I don't want to speak for you, sorry. But it was south of the school and on the corner of Orange and College. Is where that, and it was
Oh,
right-
yeah, okay, it was
Yeah,
not a
it-
cafeteria, it was a restaurant.
Yeah, well, it was
Yeah.
where all the college kids hung out.
Yeah.
And got their candy bars and popcorn. And
Yeah,
right across the street from the chapel that was on the campus.
yeah,
And it was another old military building.
yeah.
Now, when the ASU bought all those properties there, we lived at 1001 McAllister, and my grandparents lived at 1033 McAllister. Now, my parents had sold this house and moved out to 1320 Hall Street, which is on your paper route. That paper route that you described was my Arizona Republic paper route,
No, that was south of
Apache.
Apache, I was north of Apache,
Oh, you were north of Apache.
yeah.
Where that was your paper route was?
I went down Lemon Street,
Yeah.
before it was paved.
North, I'm sorry, north. I got them.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my paper route for Republic, for the Arizona Republic. And Lemon Street was just a dirt street, right?
Lemon Street was a dirt
And the
street.
railroad track ran down Terrace, which is now Terrace. And you probably had how many papers to deliver in that route?
104,
Yeah. I had like 67 papers, and that's a square mile from rural to McClintock, from Apache to the river bottom. There was nothing south of 8th Street, which ran on a diagonal past Marlette's garage.
yeah,
And that little canal that ran through there, I thought there was pieces of that canal left still, but I can't find it anywhere. But Marlette's garage is still standing in about one of the only buildings, and the Rodriguez house.
yes.
Did you know that Rodriguez family?
I did, I delivered a paper to them and collected
Did you know any of the kids?
$1.75 every 2 weeks.
Did you know any of the kids that were there?
I did not know them very well.
Okay.
They lived quite a bit further east than they lived.
Yeah.
The Mexican families that lived right in our neighborhood
That was San
were
Paulo.
the Peraltas,
Yes,
the Perezes,
yep,
across the canal were the Obregons,
okay.
and then trying to think of the other Cota. The last name was C-O-T-A. Those were the families that I knew the best.
Several of those kids from those families have a breakfast the first Monday of every month. And they meet in a restaurant and sit around and talk. So we're gonna try to get together with them.
The Peraltas?
The Peraltas, the Obregons, all of them. One of those families has a relative that came here in 1770s.
Yeah.
So they're old. So, there was a barber shop, well, anyway, there was lots of things going on down around there for us, and, but the paint training school is something that doesn't exist anymore, and was an experimental school for the college, for a lab school for the teachers, as you described. So you were part of that laboratory experiment, and like I said, they taught us everything but how to study.
I still have probably 4 friends that I've had since we started in the ASU Child Development Laboratory. And Bill Swallen, John Montgomery,
John Montgomery,
and he still lives in his whole family home.
does he?
Yeah, they're on Broadway. And who are the others? Jeff Johnson.
Jeff Johnson's in Nebraska
Yes,
farming.
exactly.
Right, he was my brother's. Did you know my brother Bob?
Yes, Bobby Lothridge.
Yeah, that's my brother.
Well, see, he's a year younger than I am.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah,
But he and Jeff Johnson are good friends.
yeah.
So the Goodwin house that you lived in, is that for the Kemper Goodwin family? Is that named after them?
I don't know. We need to do some research on it, but I think it was.
Okay, and that's the family of the governor, the first governor of Arizona, whose tomb is out in the Papago Park.
Could be.
I think.
It was a beautiful old home.
Sure, yeah.
Our living room was, almost as big as this room is.
Yeah.
It was big, and the ceilings were higher than this. Above each of the doors, there was a transom window inside. And I can remember at my mother's parties or showers or whatever, we could shinny up the door jambs because our walls were real thick, and or get a ladder or stand on chairs when we were older and look through those transom windows to see what was
You're gonna try
what was
to show people what I look
transpiring.
like, right? They'll be doing this with me one of these days, maybe. Okay, I wrote a couple notes, I'm sorry about, and your dad was a rancher, you say, and he lived in?
He was an attorney,
Okay,
and his hobby was ranching.
where was his ranch?
We had a ranch in Tonto Basin,
Oh, okay,
and we had a ranch in Flagstaff,
okay,
a summer and a winter ranch.
okay. Because you had to keep the cattle out of the snow and.
Exactly. My grandkids, saw me on a horse, and, I was telling stories about doing roundup and branding, and my job was to, when they snip the horns off the calves, blood would spurt out, and my job was to have a hot iron. We had 3 hot irons in the fire or the blowtorch, whichever we were using, and come and cauterize and those calves were going like this. And I still love the smell of burned blood.
What
For
else
some
would they
reason,
do? What else would they
just
do
a
to those-
nice memory,
what else
because
would
I
they-
cauterized those horns. But they said, Grandpa, you could have been a cowboy. Why weren't you a cowboy? And I said, I don't tell them, but the 3 reasons were: you go on roundup or go out riding, and you haven't been on a horse for 4 months, and then you're on a horse for 4 days. So the 3 reasons I was not a cowboy was saddle sore, sunburned, and sworn at. My dear father was not very patient always, and he thought because I had Randall genes, and they had been cowboys for 4 generations, that I should know exactly how to cut that calf, or when to do this, or where these, and I didn't always know. So I was.
So what else did they do to those calves besides dehorn them?
Pardon?
What else did they do to those calves besides cut their horns off?
They branded them, and
Knock
they
oysters out.
castrated
Got
the
the
male
mountain
calf.
oysters out of them, right?
Yeah. Now between University and Apache Boulevard, right on McClintock Street, Arizona State College had a rodeo grounds, and they actually had a rodeo team back in those days. And the young men that were rodeo champions or on the rodeo team would come out there and do cattle roping and barrel racing. The ladies would do barrel racing, and we would go out there and watch that. Well, when ASU sold that property, my father was able to buy it. And so that was a place where we kept horses and cattle. And I can remember, just as a little as a fun game, we would get in the cattle chute where they'd let the calves go to rope them. And us kids would get in that cattle chute, and my dad would say, go, and we would run to try to get to the other end of the corral, and he would rope our legs, and we would fall in the soft dirt. That was a game he loved to play, and we did too. When we would come home and we would just be covered with sweat and dirt. My mother was pretty disgusted, I think, with my dad, but we had a good time. And then later, when the town moved out that way, my father subdivided that land. And there is a street there called Randall Drive. It's a cul-de-sac that goes into where that property was. It went from Don Carlos to Hayden Lane and back probably a half a mile. And he sold lots there for people to build homes. He sold lots for $800 a piece. And I had a brother-in-law that was a builder, and he got a lot when they got married as a gift from my parents. And he built a home on that, sold it, built another home and sold it, and built a third home on that subdivision and built it. And he was very good to me in that I learned about house plans, I learned how to roof, I learned how to paint, I learned a lot of building skills that he taught me, and I'm very indebted to him. He was a famous football player, and he's on the Football Hall of Fame at ASU. His name was Barefoot Bobby Fuller, and he kicked the football with his foot tucked under, and just a small guy, but just built like an ox. And he had the collegiate record of kicking 52 extra points, or making 51 out of 52 attempts. He did not miss but one of his extra point kicks. And in 1935, I should add that my dear mother went to ASU for a year before she got married, and she was elected campus queen on the campus. And that was the same year that Jimmy Creasman, was elected campus king.
What was her name? Her maiden
Eloise
name?
Kleinman.
Kleinman, okay.
Her last name was Kleinman. But she lived in Mesa. She did not live in a dorm here. The road between Tempe and Mesa was cement, and they would roller skate along that road to get to school. And if anyone was driving a car and coming that way, they would turn around and try to get their attention, and then they would jump on the running board and get a ride as far as they could. Well, on cars. That's the way she said she got to school. And later, she went back to ASU after us kids were all in school, and she received her degree. She graduated from college from ASU the same year my oldest sister graduated, and then my next sister, Dixie, graduated from high school, and that same year I graduated from paint training school. So we had 4 graduates in our family that year.
Let's talk about roller skating then for a minute. That brings up another question. Do you remember the roller skating rink down by the pool?
Yes.
Did you ever go there and skate?
No.
Didn't skate.
It cost way too much to rent the skates.
Did you ever go to the swimming pool? When you went to the swimming pool?
Oh yeah, I did.
Who was the coach for you at the swimming pool? Joe Mckell?
I don't remember. I can't remember.
And what year was that you were there?
I was there. I was on the swimming team, and it was because they did the swimming team early, it seemed like that year. It was just 1 year. Because we had to go to the Natural Bridge
Right.
to clean our swimming pool
Sure.
and empty trashes and mow 4 acres of lawn and do laundry for
Well,
the guests.
Joe Mckell, do you know what year that was that you were on the swimming team? What year were you on the
I'm going to say I was probably 12, so it would have been in 57 maybe.
Okay. Now, you mentioned where you live now is an area called Shalimar,
Yes,
and that was the old Moore farm, is that correct?
exactly.
And who were they?
Dr. Moore was a governor, I believe, and he was a doctor, and his home is still there on Price Road, and the church, the Episcopal Church, owns that home.
Speaking of old home, the Arredondo home is still there
On University it is, Yeah.
That's that's the last house there.
Yeah.
I don't know who lives in it, but there's one there. And those boys, you remember those boys' names? Henry was the oldest, correct?
I don't remember. They were all old. Every one of them were older than I
you.
was.
There
Joe is the youngest, I believe, and he was.
Rick is the baby.
Is Rick younger?
Rick is the
Okay.
baby, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's Henry, Hank, Danny, Alex, Joe, and then Ben. There were 6 boys then, huh?
I thought there were just 5.
6, and then Rick. So Ben Arizona was on the city council. It's a well-known family.
Yeah.
They named the school after him.
Joe, I know the best because he was the PE teacher
Yeah.
when our kids went to Curry School.
Yeah.
So we knew him, and he was the student body president at Tempe High School when he was a senior when I was a sophomore, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm working my way down my notes here, if that's okay. Mrs. Pritchard, Mrs. Burchett, the Burchett house.
Uh-huh.
Remember that they would take school kids by the busload to Mrs. Burchett's house because she had a yard that was full of trees and she attracted birds there. She had a full range of birds that were in and out of that place, and she was a wonderful lady. Her house is still there,
Yeah.
but they've destroyed the trees and all the other stuff that's gone on around there. But she was a real attraction
Yeah.
for the kids.
There were 4 Burchett families in Tempe, and many of them have been here many, many years. Another person you could get to be interviewed that is a lifelong Tempe person is Don Burchett, and he is the nephew of the bird lady. His aunts and uncles were all prominent here in Tempe. Many of the streets are named in Tempe are Burchett, and George for one of his uncles, and Joe's, I'm trying to think of the other names of the,
I've lost that name too.
you know.
Okay,
But-
is going on here, but across the street from where you lived, how about the grocery stores that,
Thompson's grocery store and Sandy's grocery
how
store.
about the Pig family?
Pig,
Pig,
oh yeah, they lived over on Van Ness.
they lived on Van
The
Ness.
3 Pig sisters, the
Yes,
3 little pig sisters.
right.
And we saw one of them just, how long ago was it? We saw Joanne.
Recently.
Joanna's
She called
around.
herself one of the Pig sisters.
Yeah, she
The
said, I'm
little-
one of the 3 little
the
pig
three little
sisters.
pigs.
Yeah, they are,
That's what she called us.
they're great people, and they are active in the old settlers.
Oh,
So
okay.
they're trying to reach into the old settlers, but they owned a grocery store on Normal, and they lived on Normal, I think, and Normal and 8th Street is where their store was,
Oh.
in that neighborhood. And so you would have been in their store, I suspect. I was.
I always went across the street to Thompson's,
Okay.
and I teased my grandkids, and one of them figured it out. I said, okay, when I was 10 years old, my mom gave me a dime and said, I'm making tuna fish sandwiches for lunch. Would you go across the street and buy a loaf of bread? And so I said, okay, if I had that same dime, could I buy a loaf of bread today? And they all of them said, no. But one very intelligent grandson that I have said, Grandpa, that was a silver dime back then, and it's worth $3 now. So if you have that dime, you could buy a loaf of bread.
Did you ever go to the Long's Grocery at the other end of McAllister on Apache?
Long?
Long Grocery.
No, we had 2 grocery stores. We had Sandy's and Thompson's right across the street.
And there
So
was a motor coach, there was a motel type of arrangement in there too. It was owned by the Mitchells, not the Mitchell family that's the currently active in Tempe, but
then there was the Wigwam
the
Hotel.
was up on Apache.
And we loved to, Mrs. Barth was her name, the Barth family that owned that. And she taught Sunday school in our church. And so once a year she would have a Sunday school party, so we would get to go and swim in her swimming pool. It was a real treat to get to go, to get old enough to be in her Sunday school class so we could go swimming.
And I passed over Bruce Harper. Remember, you talked about Bruce Harper?
Yeah,
He died young, relatively young. His daughter Carol still lives in the community.
oh,
She has a real estate business. And he became an administrator at Tempe High eventually.
yes. He was there when my cousin Jim Randall was also an assistant principal.
But he was a iconic figure in the school district.
Oh,
Well, okay, thank you for letting me participate in this.
Of course, we appreciate all your input and your memories.
I'm sure there are lots of things I have forgotten, but it's a whole lifetime.
I appreciate you coming out and
Can we talk about the grapefruit
grapefruit. Okay.
plant? Remember the, just west of Mill Avenue, where they processed grapefruit?
Oh, yes. It was like a sun-kissed,
It stunk up the
Citrus.
whole neighborhood.
you know,
And speaking of stinking up the whole neighborhood, how about the stockyards?
along Broadway Road.
Broadway Road, that rural road running toward McClintock.
I was used to that smell. It did not bother me at all. Yeah, I could do a whole session just on the natural bridge, milking cows, and all the things we did there for our guests and for the people. You can turn this off because we're off. Have both of you been to the Tonto Natural Bridge?
I have. Yeah.
Have you been there? I think it's the prettiest spot in all of Arizona. It rivals the Grand Canyon in my mind.
It's a lot smaller.
Yeah. But the beauty there,
It is
and
very pretty.
the Grand Canyon is all pretty much the same. It's the same. The Natural Bridge, there's waterfalls.
Yeah.
There's an area that looks like Hawaii.
Yes.
There's, it's just so diverse and so beautiful there, I think.
A lot of good day trips in range for Tempe people, don't you think?
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly.
A lot of